podcast with Nick
Yeah.
and Graham
Just
and Ethan
let's
too.
run that. Let's run that after we do the uh hey, let's start the homemade camera podcast.
Okay, you got it.
Okay.
And we are live. I'm gonna just quickly
Hey.
repost this business to to something
Okay.
to Facebook, but we are live. Graham, take it away.
Yeah. Hey, so I've got a question for y'all. Um Light seal or light trap? What is your preference? Ethan, light seal, light trap.
Light
What do you
seal,
think?
or sorry, light trap, because it can't degrade. However, um, it could be it could be a seal, depending upon engineering constraints.
Okay. And Nick, what do you
Yeah,
think?
I
Light
like
seal, light trap.
traps. I like traps.
Okay.
Traps
So
better than seals.
yeah, so my current project that I'm working on is a project that requires a dark slide, and because it requires a dark slide, it just you get straight paths, and straight paths tend to allow light in, right? So I have been working with light seals, and in fact, that's something. This is again this. I'm kind of working on this project as a commodity, meaning it's something that I'll sell on my Etsy shop as a downloadable file, that type of thing. And so I'm one of the reasons why I did not put a red window in the Kraken is because then I would have to find a supply for red window material and
I think I still
point
have
towards that.
a square foot of that red window material that you sent me that I can.
And I have a bag. I have a bag. I could probably find that. I think I have a bag of both those rectangular or square rounded squares.
But
And
you'd also have to send them to people.
exactly. There's a fulfillment. And so part of the deal is with the Kraken, what you needed was in materials, in consumable materials, you needed glue, you need PLA, and you need to print the PLA. And you needed one other bit of material. Oh, screws. There we go. And so those are readily available across the world. And I use the metric screws so that they are available in advanced civilizations.
Also,
But
everybody who has a 3D printer has a stock of M3 screws.
right, yeah, absolutely. So when I cannot do this current project with just that limited material, so I need some metal for dark slides, and I need some material for light seals. And there are a couple of places where there's light seal, and I've used that foam, the craft foam. In fact, I have some craft foam right here. And what's really nice about it is it's pretty. The stuff that I can get, I get this on Amazon, but you can get it. Or maybe I got this at like Michael's or Hobby Lobby or something like that. But this is 2 millimeters, pretty uniform. I have also just ordered some craft felt to see if I can if I can make that work as well. So anyway, so I'm down the path of requiring that in the build, and so this is going to be a little bit more complicated from sourcing point of view. It's actually a much simpler build. I learned a lot of things off of the Kraken build, and I learned quite a few things. And it's still I'm not going to tell you what it is yet. Hopefully, in the next show, I have to track down a couple of final little problems. but but I decided, there's really no two ways around it. So craft foam or craft felt is going to be in your future if this is a product that you are interested in. So
Yeah, so I just wanted to
yeah,
point out
go ahead.
there's a little bit of this same foam in the mongoose. Each one uses something like a quarter of a square inch or something like that. Um, and I got a pack of like 10 of these sheets for $20 or something like that on
Yeah.
Amazon. Really,
Oh, I
really
mean,
big
and
wheel.
I think this is even cheaper in Michael's, and it comes in different colors. Yours is black,
Yep.
but I think it's complete. It's just as opaque.
Yep.
I should probably test it.
So I've been using the stuff that is sold as light seal foam by the sheet, and I have it has a sticky side and a peel off back.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Okay, so for those of you on
that's no good.
For those of you who are on the podcast listening, I'm trying to turn my phone light off. I can shine a light through that, which is, but when you run it along the edges of it, I think it's pretty well light sealed.
Pretty well might not be good enough.
There's always black.
I'd be interested in seeing how well the foam, the felt works. In principle, the felt might be better because
you're right. You're right.
And it's also going to help keep coronavirus out of your film holder.
Yeah, I actually have KN95 foam. So, listen.
Nah.
Yeah, I couldn't breathe through that at all. I mean, so it's not going to let any of that little virus. It's not going to let the new little.
And as a plus, if you try and breathe through it all the time, it'll solve all of your problems.
It will solve many. it just like beer. Yeah, I like light traps, but and this project has light traps all over it. But one of the things that kind of annoys me about modern cameras, modern film cameras, and I mean 90s film cameras, was that they went to that foam light sealant that just, I mean, anybody who's ever had to replace the light seals on an RB67 back, you curse that day. And when they could have engineered a light trap on all of those parts.
Well, I've noticed that most of the film holders, the better ones, even the Mamiya press, what they usually do is they build in light traps for where it's easy, and then they just on the hinge they stick in a seal, so a lot of the older ones are like that. So they're still using light traps, but it's they couldn't be bothered to do it on the hinge, and then that's where there'll be a strip of foam, and that's pretty easy to fix because it's accessible. The worst are when they kind of have a light trap with foam down inside it.
Yeah, then you got to dig it out with a little screwdriver.
That's a pain in the neck, but
and then you use a solvent and it gets everywhere, and here's a question for you. You both have, as I do, modern cameras with the little peek window that allows you to see what film is in there. Okay, so Ethan and Nick, do you actually have one of those cameras that does not have tape over that window?
Yeah, I don't put tape over mine, and they were fine.
I tape them all.
I tape them all. Both, and some that really need it.
Well, the I don't have very many that have that feature, but the ones that come to mind are like the Voigtlander Bessa ones. Those work fine, no light leaks, and they're I think there's a big old piece of foam donut around that window, so.
Yeah. So, okay, either of you have anything more to say on that? Okay, well, let's start the Homemade Camera Podcast.
Yeah. We're going.
Okay. Ethan is working on getting some music in here. And Ethan, if you want me to be the person who runs that, I probably can't. It has to be the person who's running the OBS, right?
Yes.
To run
Although
that.
you could run OBS, but we're going to do a tutorial for all the podcasts at some point.
Well,
yeah,
you'll just have a few. You'll just have a few pre-selected canned, bits of music that you can pick A, B, C, or D, and
just like we do when we're editing the podcast. So
exactly. Yeah.
So today we're actually it is December 30th, and it is about 10:30 Eastern, and we are running live on the Homemade Camera Podcast Facebook group. Are we on YouTube as well?
We are on the Homemade Camera Podcast channel on YouTube, and we're also on the Cameradactyl Twitch channel, which nobody ever
Okay. So just to let you guys know, I think that in the future, we're going to be doing a lot more of these live things. And once again, we are committed to this being a podcast as well as the multimedia
extravaganza experience.
Right. So just if we will find a way to publish or let you guys know via the socials that we are we're going to be doing a show live, and you can call in and call in by joining our, what do you call it, Google Meet thing.
Yeah.
So not all shows will probably be that, if we've got a guest who we've been trying to get on, and we just want to ask our questions, right? Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we might do more call-ins, but yes, for now, we'll open the call-ins up in at the end of this episode if anybody's watching while they should be at work on a Wednesday morning.
Yeah, exactly. So this show is the 2020 year in review. Now we do have one more day in 2020, so we still could be pardoned before the end of the year. But we're going to talk about homemade cameras in the year 2020. Now, I edited or actually, let me say that a different way. I put together the Homemade Camera Podcast zine, and it is ready to go. It's just that Nick, wave to the crowd, Nick. There we go. Nick has to finish the proofreading on it, and then we will have it available for everybody. Nick, you're muted.
Read about halfway through, and it looks great, but there are one or two small editing, just sort of for clarity. And I need to, I guess I have to do it online in order to edit. And I was doing it on my phone.
Oh, I see what you're saying. You need to do it on a big screen. That's perfectly fine. But what I want you to do is just put a note, and then I will, because it is not live online. It's on.
Oh, okay. So I'll just write up notes for you. All right. Well, I can just type up notes, and I couldn't do that on my phone. I just couldn't. So I was trying to do it like when I had little opportunities throughout the day, and I could read, but I couldn't really take good notes. So
yeah. So what became apparent as I was putting that together, as I was looking at all of the cameras that people put out, all of the accessories that people put out. We got the Pixelator finally. The Pixel much later finally.
I have mine. It came in a week and a half.
And we've had a hell of a flood. And we're going to talk about those. It was really apparent that actually 2020, being the super sucky year in general that it was a great year for homemade cameras and the homemade camera community. And I'm super excited about that. I'm super excited about what how many different people stepped up, or how many different people stepped into the spotlight this time around. There are people who've been doing homemade cameras for years. We talked with Hervé Elena, who has been making these cameras since the 90s.
I was just rewatching that episode this morning while I was working on YouTube connectivity issues. It was great.
I am still in awe of the stuff that we unearthed from his twisted little French mind. Or big mind, I should say, maybe. That's just one little bit. So I actually named the 2020 homemade camera zine as the best year ever.
I forgot you did that.
Yeah. I'm really excited because this sets up 2021 as being even better. But we wanted to talk about a few that really grabbed our attention. And I want to say at the beginning, if we leave you out, it's just because it's been a plentiful year. It is not because, it could be because we're stupid. But
you can call in at the end and correct us.
Right. Exactly. So we've already talked about the pixelator. And so, Ethan, you can join in or not if you want, as he works on the pixelator Slayer. That's what it is.
No,
but the pixelator.
They're complementary products.
Yeah, they're complementary products. But I got my pixelator I think it was in June. It was in one of the early batches. It wasn't in the first batch, but that went out. But it was pretty early. And I may be wrong about the month, but I'm thinking that was June. It took me 2 months. Excuse me. It took me 2 months to figure out what I had. And it's taken me another 2 months to really figure out how to use it. But I am at the point where, I'm going to say at the beginning of 2020, I bought an Epson V700 because my V600 died. Is it 700 or 750? 700. Because my V600 died. Those are Epson scanners. Those were, the 700 and 850 and all those. They're pretty close to each other. The 700 series and the 800 series are pretty close to each other. And, they were $800,000 new. Mine came in used, but I don't see a use for it anymore. And I'm going to say that I kept holding on, thinking that I needed to, I figured out 35 millimeter, but 120 is much better and much easier on the scanner. And slowly format after format fell.
You prefer using a digital camera and pixel is what you're saying.
I prefer using, I have an X Pro 2. I put on it a stack of adapters that includes an M42 that's like a 25 to 50 helicoid. And then on the end of that, there's a 75 millimeter enlarger lens, and that's it. That's all I need. And I can use all the different formats. I can, I don't even need to switch different lenses for different size formats, because then I stitch anything larger than 6x6 or 6x, I think you can probably do 6x9.
6x9 matches your camera's format. But what's nice, I stitch 6x6 simply to get the full benefit of, resolution, because otherwise you're cropping. So
Yeah.
I always just do anything, anything bigger than the 35 millimeter. I'll just frame it so that the width of the camera sensor matches the short side, and then do
And
2 or
then
3
stick.
shots. And
Yeah.
it takes a little bit longer, but I think it's worth it. I think you get
Okay.
I mean,
Whoa,
you get
it
a
does
lot of
take
good
a little bit
information.
longer. The only thing it takes longer than is shooting 35 millimeter. Is scanning, doing 35 millimeter.
Oh no, you're
process. No.
No.
The whole process is faster than scanning one strip.
Yeah, but stitching adds a step. That's all.
Yeah, stitching adds a step. It's still faster.
Overall,
yeah, and it's not just faster, but it's easier. I find it easier.
So I'm still using a scanner for 35 millimeter, but it's a dedicated film scanner. It's very, very slow, but for my purposes, it does a better job than shooting that small negative with a camera. However, the issue I have is that I've been using that plugin in Lightroom, Negative Lab Pro, which is improved and gives much more interesting color and control over that. But it really likes the camera files a lot better than the scanner files. It's there's just something about that interface that works way better if you're using a digital camera than a scanner. So that's the only regret I have about that. But I'm drifting away from 35 millimeter. It's really fun to shoot, but I just like what I get out of big film so much better that it's
Yeah. No, this year, about halfway through the year, I was, I was locked away by social distancing, not by any laws in my area. No, you're on your own. It's in my area. But I bought a Ricoh R1S, which is a super small pocket point and shoot. And so I've shot more 35 millimeter film this year than I have in years, because it just fits in my pocket. It's always there. It is very easy to control the autofocus. I don't miss focus on it ever. Unless I'm taking a selfie. Sometimes that, I'm not controlling it there. But so I've scanned a ton of 35 millimeter. And in fact, I've stopped cutting up my 35 millimeter rolls because it's so much easier to just keep on pulling it through the pixelator. And if I ever get a mongoose.
You're not getting a mongoose, you're getting a mystery product.
I'm getting
I've stopped using the mongoose.
Yeah. Well, Ethan, that's good because you're getting one of my mystery products too. Nick, you're out of luck. So let's move on to the next one, and I'm going to hold something up to my camera.
So before you go on to the next one, do you maybe want to do like a quick list of what we're going to do?
No, let's just go through it.
Yeah, all right, sorry. Keep going.
And everybody can go, is mine going to be next? Is mine going to be next?
Right.
I have a little item that I'm going to hold up. And it is about the size of the end of my thumb, the last knuckle in my thumb. And it is a light meter. It is the Reveni Labs light meter. And Matt Bettberger was on the other day. And here, I'm going to show you how I use
both of the homemade camera zines with some excellent cameras as well.
Absolutely. And yeah, I wasn't putting it on, but this is what I was out using it with yesterday. So it fits right on the end of my, if I actually had it on there. Yeah, I'm not.
That is absurd.
But anyway, it was sitting right on the end of my Chamonix. And I was out shooting yesterday. And it was a this is a great little product. There are alternatives out there. In fact, if you're somebody who buys a lot of stuff on AliExpress, you'll see a lot of light meters. But here, there are light meters that are the size of this, and I'm holding up a battery. And then there are the light meter. I think that the Reveni, which one is it? Come on. Reveni Labs version is the smallest, lightest, easiest to use for me.
It's about half the size of the one that I had in my drawer.
Yeah, and it's smaller than the butter. Isn't it smaller than the butter?
Yeah, I mean the butter meter was 6 times the size of what it should have been because it was analog. But even my digital one would have been twice the size of the Reveni Labs meter.
Yeah.
So I'm curious. Can you imagine imagine that you're farsighted and you need reading glasses, and pretty badly farsighted? Can you read the tiny little numbers easily on it? Without your reading glasses? Yeah.
Let me show you my little friend. Okay, so what I just held up was a loop that I use that's on a string that hangs off the back of my Chamonix to make sure that I am properly focused. So I can read it. I'm going to be wearing reading glasses at that point anyway, because I am very much farsighted at this point in my life. After having LASIK surgery about 2008, so that's 12 years ago. I'm very farsighted, and which is perfect. I mean, I can see crisp at a distance. But in order to see the ground glass on my camera, I have to be wearing glasses anyway. So if you were, that may be an issue if you are without glasses and you're looking through a 35 millimeter, you're using it on, say, a Leica M2, like that, if you have it on your Leica M2 and you're just doing the normal stuff of looking through and focusing. Yeah, that could be an issue. I haven't really found it to be an issue. I haven't used it much on the M2. I've used it on larger format cameras mostly. So that's a fabulous little product. I'm not going to say what it is, but I understand he is expanding the line. And I'm excited to see what is coming out with that. So where should we go next, guys?
What's next on the list?
Well, what's next? Oh yeah, okay. So I'm just
OBS.
Jumping around.
Okay,
I'm jumping around.
So maybe we should talk about we're kind of we're almost into the realm of the small garage factory made product podcast.
Yeah,
which is cool.
Yeah. Well, okay. So before you get into what you were going to do, let me say I'm going to talk about my favorite camera of the year that is not even a camera. It's Heather Okelaus's Dollhouse.
It's a camera obscura.
It is.
It's kind of.
It's much more than that.
It is so much more than that. It is so. It makes me so happy. And okay, so what it is it is a dollhouse. It's a dollhouse that's probably 2 meters by 1.5 meters, so 3 feet by 2 feet, something like that. And it is in each one of the rooms, there is a window at the front. And I believe what she used was a
Magnifying Fresnel.
yeah.
There we
go.
I want to comment
Yeah,
that your metric conversion was way off.
I was holding
yeah, it doesn't
in.
matter. Yeah,
1 meter
yes.
by 2/3 of a meter.
Yes. Yeah, I understand that. I'm just giving real ballpark is the idea.
He's within
I
an order of
understand
magnitude.
that a meter. Oh, did I say 1.5 meters? 2 meters? No, sorry.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah.
So
that makes Heather into a towering giant.
Okay. But what it is okay. So in each one of those windows, there is a magnifying Fresnel. And then in the back of each of the rooms is a ground glass. And so as you go take that through the world, you're seeing the ground glass. Now, it's not designed, I don't think it's designed to actually take a picture. It is designed to see the world. And
what better way to see the world than through a dollhouse?
Yeah. So Ethan, I interrupted your idea of the cottage industry, something I just heard recently referred to as cottage core. The idea that you make stuff out of your house, and that's more authentic than making stuff in a factory. But you were talking about the idea.
So making stuff at home, even if you're making it for sale, involves usually less technology, or less mass production, at least.
Yes.
Maybe you make a few jigs, or you have a good machine for cutting or printing things, but it's still not the same as the kind of mass production that store-bought cameras come out of. So it remains homemade. It's just homemade as a business instead of homemade for personal use.
Right. I think that what Ethan was talking about was the difference between, us putting together cameras for ourselves, hacking them together out of wood or whatever, or for those of you who have been with us from the beginning, Nick and I started out making franking cameras, taking folders, pulling the folders off and sticking a better lens on the end, and making some different cameras, different focal length, different quality of lens. And they were one-offs. And now we're getting, little 10-offs and 20-offs. We can talk about
you are.
Yeah. Well, Freeman Lin up there in Kanakistan is his is the press pan, right?
Right. And he's basically making a production Franken camera, which is really appealing to me. And also, I think as old cameras start to die, they will more and more become, the raw materials to build new cameras from, instead of being restored. Like, some of them you can keep restoring, but when electronics go, it's usually you're out of luck. And so you still have a good useful body with maybe a film transport or whatever else that can still be used.
Yeah. And Freeman Lin is on Instagram as Watch Me Make. And he's done a bunch of different camera bodies that he's kind of reamed out to get a wider wider image. So that's the pan part. And then he changes the mount and has been putting Mamiya Press lenses on them. He I think that currently he's working on one with Nimslo back. So that is that's something that's kind of exciting. So I'm not sure. You can follow him, Watch Me Make, on Instagram, and some fun stuff there.
And while you're mentioning his panoramic camera, I'd like to comment that practically everybody came out with a new panoramic camera this year. I mean, you did,
Yeah.
Ethan did.
I
There's
did it
several
last
others
year,
being.
to be fair.
Well, yeah, but it's. I think
It hit this year.
a lot of its life happened this year. It seems like everybody was. I mean, what a very high percentage of the cameras in our upcoming magazine are panoramics. I mean, it's one after the other all the way through, and I think it just occurred to me the other day that it's the year of the pandemic and the year of the panoramic.
Panoramademic.
Right.
Why do you think that is, Nick? I have a suspicion, which is that like there were not that many commercially available cameras that shot panoramic images, which means there are less around. So those are maybe the first for people to home build. But do you think there's some other cultural reason that we're seeing so many?
Well, we are in a time where people are living with long, narrow screens. Like, the whole digital monitor world from phones up went to that movie style panoramic point of view. And I think after years and years and years of the 3:2 format being what people associate with still photography, there's kind of a liberation to all of a sudden be going into another equally familiar format. And there's also that feeling that you can have more going on in the frame. Like the whole television world started with almost a square, which is a wonderful format and I love it, but it's about one head, and as soon as you put two heads into that, you jump way back. And the panoramic lets you have two people in one space and still be close up. And that's probably why it took over in cinema, because, headshots get pretty boring in the movies. You want to see at least two people. So there's a kind of a practical, real estate reason for the panoramic layout, which I think is much stronger part of visual culture now than it used to be. So why not?
I would also posit the idea that we are because we're encountering fewer people, we are shooting more landscape, and so the panorama is very much a landscape format.
See, I would have thought it was the year of the square because everybody's only shooting selfies this year.
The reason the thing that makes it a great landscape format is not so much that it's wide per se, but that it lets you get a wide shot with a longer lens, and that's really advantageous. So wide angle lenses can be problematic in the landscape because the background can get too far away. And so just widening the sensor is more productive. So it could be square with a really huge piece of film too, I suppose. But that
I have to
has
say,
its own problems.
Well, and you just said something about sensor. I am super surprised that none of the camera manufacturers or even nobody's put any money in a camera with two sensors side by side, or you could rotate them.
Well, except for
Apple. Does Apple do that?
Yeah, you got like a triple camera right now. I think it's more interesting
But that's one sensor per lens. I'm saying two sensors for one lens.
Yeah, which is the only logical solution, because they're not going to come out with a custom panoramic sensor that's big enough to use for stills. There's just not enough demand for it. But putting two side by side and essentially stitching them with software in live view or whatever is perfectly possible.
I think
you would have to interpolate.
I think the obvious solution is just like a 65 megapixel Sony that you crop.
Yeah, right. And that's what Fuji does. They have a crop mode, which is a lot of fun, actually.
Sure.
And it saves the RAW, so you get that back up if you change your mind.
Yeah, wouldn't it be cheaper though? Two 18 megapixel sensors side by side rather than a 65 megapixel
No, right? Because then, I mean, it's like there's some manufacturing scale that Fuji's got to deal with, right? Like, it's. I think.
I was thinking Canon, but yeah. But yeah, I hear what you're saying.
No, I think you're right in principle, Graham, but but in terms of the products that they're interested in selling, they're not going to do it. I mean, they do make a beautiful big sensor that makes a fantastic panoramic if you crop it, but it's like a several $1,000 camera, you know? And yeah, I mean, you would be cheaper to buy 2 regular APS-C cameras and mount them side by side and take simultaneous photographs.
Can you hear Ethan?
One of these
back there
days, we're gonna do a stereography show for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been doing a lot of stereo photography. So, Nick, pick something off our list. What do you want to talk about next?
Well, let's see. So, the thing I'll just mention briefly that, and I've talked about this enough that everyone's bored with it, but the you've got written on the list speed graphic thing, and I think what you mean there is
yours.
I sawed down a speed graphic to make a camera that I could use modern system medium format lenses on, and I've been more and more involved with developing ways to use speed graphics because they have a decent in-camera shutter, and you can use all sorts of lenses that don't come in a shutter, which makes them much less expensive and opens up a much wider variety of options, faster lenses, more modern lenses, but also much older lenses. So there's this, I guess I'm really focused on the combination of lenses and big film. That seems to be what I'm most interested in because I like the results the best. And these cameras are a little awkward and a little slow to use, but I am so much more excited by the kinds of images I can make with them that it's worth putting up with a little extra trouble. And so that's a direction I'm going in. And now a few other people out there are edging towards a good, a useful shutter that can be used on a homemade camera scale. So not the fancy leaf shutters that we can use with large format and some medium format lenses, but an actual in-camera shutter that allows you to use any kind of lens. People are inching towards that, but it's not quite available yet, but it's gonna happen. And that opens up the same thing that my speed graphic conversions opens up, which is what I'm most excited about at this point going forward. And I think there's room to invent some even better things. I'd love to see a very simple mechanical shutter for smaller lenses that's practical for homemade, and it's we're getting closer and closer. People are working on it.
I'm with you on that. And for large format, as people are moving into large format more and more, and that's something that's on our list, that we've seen a lot of large format home builds and cottage builds. That is that's exciting. I've been talking about building lenses, and right now I'm kind of limited building lenses for my Graflex RB. Now 4x4, but it was a 3x4, and I'm limited to that because that's where the shutter is. So I would love to figure out some shutters, and it doesn't have to have a very long travel. It only needs to be a short travel. So maybe that's a 2021 thing that we're talking about.
I think it is, absolutely.
Yeah.
I wanna call 2021 the year of the Shutter. It's not gonna be me
Okay.
necessarily, but I think that's what's gonna happen.
So 2020 was the year of shuttering, and 2021 is the year of the shutter.
Shuttering in place.
Shutter. Absolutely. Shuttering in place.
Well, I'm not sure that's going to be over next year, but at least we can see the end coming. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Okay, so let's talk about the we've got some stuff coming out of Steve Lloyd, his and the Chroma camera. Also with that, they delivered, I don't know, was that a full 2020 project? The wet
6,
plate
7,
holder.
9. Oh, the wet plate.
No,
holder.
the wet plate holder with
Yeah.
The wet and dry plate holders, both from 20th Century Camera and from Chroma Camera, are pretty much came out this year. And Jay Lane was involved in the Chroma. He was involved in the Chroma, designing the Chroma dry plate and wet plate holder. Which, and theirs has got a nice feature, which is that you can get with it, a spacer that makes it into, you can use it with regular film as well.
I think that is an original
that's
Jeff
handy.
Perry design, actually. He's been making them as well.
Well, 20th Century Camera makes them as well. Yeah, I'm not sure who was first on that. It doesn't really matter. It's just a logical extension of a very old, one of the oldest ways of, exposing an image in a camera. It's just been modernized and made practical for modern production.
In fact, I was hanging out on live stream, I think, crimping cables or sanding something the other night, and Jason Lane came on to say hi, and he was assembling like 10 or 20 dry plate holders, doing some glue. We had a long talk about adhesives. And then actually somebody called in to ask a question about his dry plate camera, and I just happened to have Jason on the line. It was like a real car talk episode. It was great.
So one thing that's interesting about that list, so I noticed, in my opinion, quite a few of the relatively small companies that are making cameras are expanding dramatically this year. And if you go down the whole list of the Chroma, Intrepid, Cameradactyl, 20th Century Camera, Jay Lane, Dora Goodman, Freeman Lynn, all these people who are making Reveni Labs, all these people are making. They're a lot of them are expanding. Some of them are moving into bigger facilities, and some of them are hiring people. They're expanding the lines of what they offer dramatically. And a big part of what's driving that is the move towards more and more people being interested in large format at a scale I had no idea was going to happen. I mean,
thought what was driving it was online shopping as retail therapy.
Well, that's part of it, and a lot of people had more time to focus on, fiddling with. They're stuck at home and maybe weren't able to work, but so there are all those factors. But I think that the trend was going to happen anyway. It may have accelerated it this year. It isn't completely logical that with a huge economic downturn, people are spending more money on such relatively useless things as large format cameras. So it's a bit surprising. It's a bit it goes against the flow of a lot of things. So I think it's significant. I don't think it's going to stop. I think the next few years it's going to keep expanding.
Yeah, and I think that there's something about this year in particular. The idea of purchasing from somebody, not necessarily who you know personally, but who you know of. Mm-hmm. As we've been talking, Ethan's been putting together mongoose.
Yeah. I've been putting together 4-pin JST connectors, which I should have hired a child or a service to do, but sometimes you just gotta muscle through because crimping ain't easy.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's Ethan the gangsta right there. Crimping ain't easy.
Well,
I think
there is
go.
a strong incentive for people to come up with self-employment, obviously, because there's a great pool of people who need a job. So I was able to keep working through the pandemic, and I hired somebody full time to help me with that. So this is a really good time for any business to figure out a way to offer employment, because there's tons of people looking for work, and that's so that's a factor too, I suppose.
Yeah. And I know for a fact that there, within our community and of the people that we're talking about, I know several people who spent time laid off. And laid off from their employment. I've been lucky that my employment has been constant. And so it is a different environment. That's what we'll say. It's a different environment. So is there anything? Oh, let's talk about the Lomo Instant Back, the Instax Back. Yeah. What now? What do you guys want to say about that?
I got
anybody
something to say
want to
about
take
it,
a lead on that?
for sure.
Yeah,
I'm really excited about it. I think there's a couple of products that I have this request form on my website, and I try and get back to people, but sometimes it just goes into a list, and months later I'll check to see what people want. But probably the number one requested camera or camera product that I get is some form of Instax back for large format cameras or medium format cameras, or Instax cameras that take Mamiya press lenses. And I think they're sort of, kind of no-brainer products, right? Because Instax is fun, it's inexpensive, and it doesn't generally come with nice lenses. Although I think that actually the Fuji lenses are pretty good, and I dig them for what they are. Anyway, I get these requests all the time, and there are people like Max Wanderlush and other like eBay sellers who just tear the front end off of a Fuji Instax camera, and they mount a Mamiya press camera, and they sell those. And I thought, never could I compete price wise with those, and they're perfect cameras. I wouldn't, maybe I would add some aesthetics to it, but that's clearly not been my strong suit.
Yeah, but Ethan, those would be your aesthetics, and though,
my aesthetics are interesting to say the least. They are like Electric Dreamland engineering aesthetics, but I have always shied away from those types of products because I would just have to charge more than I think they are worth to build things like that at my scale, anyway. But then Lomo came out with this thing, and I sighed a big, sigh of relief. Like sometimes I have I look back and I regret, like, why didn't I make that product? Like when Matt just like hammered me, which was awesome. I love Matt Beckberger, but when Lomo came out with this thing for $134, I thought, like, this is exactly why I didn't do that, right? I would have sold that back for $300 or $400, right? Because it was taking me hours to produce at the scale, and I'm not going to go to injection molding for that with my own money.
And you've got to source metal rollers and all that type of stuff, and motors.
I got to tell you a story offline.
But okay,
yeah, I mean, what that did was, like, one, convinced me I made absolutely the right decision by not putting 5 or 6 months into that, and then just getting crushed by Lomo. And two, I was excited that it exists because the community is going to like it. I'm about to buy one when I get off this podcast. You told me about the sale, and
they're on sale right now for $134.
Buy now.
Down from $149. So.
Yeah, I mean, either.
And in case anybody isn't aware, this is a Lomo
April.
wide or Instax wide film holder that goes on a 4x5 graph lock back, which means vast numbers of cameras will be able to just take this directly, just slap it on and go. And
Well,
the only
and go is a little bit of a misnomer. You do have to change the focusing distance because of some flange issues, but pretty close to end go.
Well, yeah, okay, but isn't there a
Does
ground
it just
glass?
come with a spacer?
Does it come with its own ground glass?
Unsure. I mean, there's many. It's a almost trivial project or problem at this point, right, for most cameras. But I think I was really glad that they did it. One, because it proved me right that I should not have been in that market, at least as camera dactyl. And two, it's a great.
You should have been in your butter.
No, maybe I'll tell you about some things offline.
Yeah. But, anyway, go on.
The fact that product exists is going to open up, for $134, it's like a super good deal. And so I think it's going to open up a lot of possibilities for people like me. Steve Lloyd is already advertising that his cameras will fit, even though I don't think the thing that he's advertising will fit is in existence. But maybe he has an early one. I don't know. People like Max Wanderlush, everybody right in this community is now sort of unburdened because for $130 you can make a camera that fits Instax wide, which is a really great deal, and it's one of those off-the-shelf parts that I'm not averse to using, and particularly because if Lomo stops making them, you can still shoot 4x5 with such a camera. Right? It's really clever, and I love that it exists, and I'm excited for it to be sort of on shelves.
I kind of think
it does come with a focusing and composition spacer, so it's a complete package. You don't have to you don't have to do any work yourself.
And so you throw one of those on the back of the OG, and all you need is a different color scale on your focusing scale, right?
Yeah.
Well, the OG isn't a graph lock back, so.
Oh, you got a point. Well,
it'll fit. I think it'll fit. I haven't been advertising it'll fit because I will not advertise that something will fit that I haven't held in my own damn hands. But it's the same shape. You just need to change the orientation of the bungees, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So anyway, I think that's
and if
pretty
it doesn't,
exciting.
I will make it fit.
And the other thing about it that's really a big deal is that it's a big enough piece of instant film to be worth using, and it's much cheaper than anything Polaroid's doing in this in that scale. So the film itself is much more affordable. And another kind of nice thing is that it also, I think it's going to fit perfectly on my 3x4 speed graphic, which has been converted to take a 4x5 graph lock back. And I think the film size is just really close to 3x4, 3.25 by 4.25, right? So it'll work on that camera, which is also good news. Mm-hmm. There's a ton of those cameras out there.
I'm excited about
something similar too. Yeah.
Yeah. The only problem is that it's an SLR, right? So that mirror distance is the biggest problem on.
No, mine is not.
I'm the one that I own.
Yeah.
Mine is. But you've got one. You've got
yours is yes, I do. Yours is good for. But my little junior is not and will not be converted to 4x5. It's mine's a 2.25 by 3.25 camera, so it's smaller than yours. But that's beside the point. What the Instax is actually a good use of it is basically portraits. So you're going to want longer lenses anyway. You're not going to be doing landscape photos on Instax wide. It's more about things that are up close and fill the frame and that kind of thing.
Right. Exactly. So, okay. So, we're coming towards the end of our list. We can talk about the Kraken really quickly. The Kraken is alive and still sells quite steadily. Every few days, or at least once a week, somebody sends me an email with something that they've done with it, modified it, put a different type of lens on it, that type of thing. I was just talking with, now I can't think of, I've just been talking with
Santa Claus.
one of the people yes, I've been talking with Santa Claus about putting 6x9 folding lenses on it. They vignette just a little bit, but yeah.
They probably did on the original folders too.
Or 616.
What are you talking about?
Camera.
What camera?
On the Kraken. So people are building.
So some are going to work and some aren't. I think
some
of them will cover. Yeah.
Well, all of those old 616 folders, those cover,
Mm-hmm.
or they're pretty close. And if it's a big issue, you can crop.
Right. So, and there's also all the quarter plate cameras. So there are 135 lenses, native, and those will work. But I'm finding also quite a few of the old projection lenses. Once you have a shutter, there's a whole lot of old lenses that have ridiculously large coverage. I mean, little tiny lenses that cover 4x5, and are $20, $30 on eBay. So there's a lot of possibilities as soon as you have a shutter.
Yeah, and that's our call. I think that's our. Let's see. We have a little chat on. Oh, and it went away. Skip Williams just said, "Okay." I'm sorry. I have the chat.
I got you.
Okay.
Skip Williams says the lenses from the Kodak 3A should definitely work on a Kraken, as they had a almost 16 centimeter image circle. Thanks, Skip.
There we go. Yeah. Thanks for watching. Thanks for participating along. So yeah, let's talk about. I guess. Do you want to say anything more about the Mongoose other than it's being fulfilled right now as we watch?
It is being fulfilled. I have 2 products based on the Mongoose in the pipeline that I am so sad that I cannot work on, because crimping ain't easy, and I spend all day now making wires and pieces. I had a Monday morning manufacturing mishap, which was malevolent. I found out I made about 30 upper film gates that had an artifact in the slice, and I was like on the verge of tears. Okay, it's $100 worth of plastic, and it's 2 days worth of running this thing. This thing being the whole farm, and I'm now about caught up. And I actually had a few more electronics parts come in, so now I can make all of the boards for the 2 boards that go in the scanner, and sort of, it's not going to slow me down at all by the time I wait for the last couple of pieces to go into the control box. But yeah, it's been a slog, and I've really enjoyed the opportunity to be able to make things for people at this quantity. And I'm just really like fantasizing about the day when I can get back to design and prototype, and then maybe even hire a kid to do things like assemble wires like I am doing now. Black, green, red, blue. All day through my head. And yeah, I mean, this is, again, Ethan getting off into, like, you're going to get mad at me like you get mad at Andre when he talks about watches on the Negative Positives podcast, which is I have been, spending all day either chatting people on the internet. I think that's the big thing that has come of the Mongoose, is that I have so much, not stupid, but necessary, but, not full brain things like what I'm doing now, which, black, green, red, blue hasn't really slowed me down too much. And so I've started the most intentionally boring live stream of all time, which is like, I got this camera and this light and these headphones and a new long Ethernet cable, and I've started live streaming pretty much all day while I'm doing tasks like this. And half of that live stream is terrible because it's me playing the smooth sounds of Mike Gutterman in background music for Productions Volume 1 through 5, while I do something like this silently all day, right? But then I've opened up the chat, and people have come in from all over the world. I had a kid in Romania, Nick, welding a dog cage in the background. I've talked to David Khrushchev, who I've seen on Facebook for years, who's in the Netherlands, who figured out some things about the RA4 process. I've sold a camera to a guy in Houston who came on my stream to ask if I was shipping his camera, and I said, "This is your camera." And then later in the week, he said, "I got my camera," and I said, "Do you want to assemble it on live stream?" And he came and assembled it on live stream. And I've talked to people in England and Wales and Scotland, Romania, the Netherlands. I think I talked to somebody in Germany the other day, Argentina, Brazil. Like, just it's for me been the year of like, I'm never going to be famous on live stream, right? Like, nobody is going to find my channel and be like, I want to watch this guy crimp cables. But it's been amazing because people who kind of know me and us and you guys have found it and come to chat. And, like, I've been quarantined for 5 years now in my garage, but other people are coming to meet me here, and hang out on the internet. And it's been really, like, I think in some ways 2020 is like, and this doesn't really have much to do with the mongoose other than it has forced me to sit at this table with the camera on. It's been the year of like online community, and I'm excited to see kind of where that goes. And Eric Matthew, we've got a bunch of comments here.
Yeah. I saw there was a discussion about whether it's mongoose.
No, it's mongooses.
No, it's mongoose.
So why don't I see any
Yes,
chat
man.
at all? I have the chat window open.
No, because you're in Google Hangouts. The chat's coming
through YouTube,
Twitch, Facebook, and YouTube.
Yeah, I'm seeing the YouTube, right, exactly. I think the community has grown. I think the community has solidified, and with a couple of very minor exceptions, I think that we have just an incredible supportive community. And I think that that's great. You just talked about Gutterman's live, or what is it?
Background music for Productions, Volumes 1 and 5. The open source music that's taking the podcast world by storm in 2020 and 21. This is Polaroid by Mike Gutterman.
Yeah. So, Gutterman had us on the show. It's a competing show, theoretically. But that's
There's
what
no
I
competition.
love about it. Yeah. Well, the only competition is in topping somebody else. They had this person on, we'll have somebody better. It's a friendly competition. We've got the best community in the world. I know Eric wanted to call it incestuous. I'm going to call it a community. But yeah, so Gutterman, thank you for having us on the negative positives. I'm not happy that Roxana has become overwhelmed with other things in her life, and she won't be a regular on the show. I think she was the best part of your show. But yeah, so and I say that with love. So I think we should probably start winding down. I think that 2021 is the shutter year. It is also the homemade lens year. Mm-hmm. I'm going to make that prediction. I know it will be for me. Whether it's the shutter year or not, it's going to be the homemade lens year.
Yeah, I think Eric and Jason Lane are both on that, as am I, but they're light years ahead of me.
Well, I think Jason Lane's been on that for the last 20 years.
Yeah, I mean, the dude
Right.
has lenses on the space station.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I still want to ask him for a really good 40 millimeter coupled rangefinder lens. I think that he needs to come out with that. So yeah, and do it M39 so we can have M39 and Leica M mounts on that. So Skip thinks we should have Freeman Lynn back on.
We should. We should probably have everybody we've had back on.
Yeah.
Which some of them we are working on right now. I tried to get us a guest today, but she is little actual has an actual job that actually is life and death for some people. But we're gonna have some people on again.
So I think we should probably wind it down. Look, see, my battery is dying on my.
Do you want to do a quick call-in section, or we should end this? I'm going to be doing this all day, so I can do call-ins while you guys are doing extra work.
Certainly. Go ahead and do that, and I'm changing the battery for those of you who are looking at the Fujifilm.
Join our chat. The link is down here. You can come talk to us. I think that's the right link. Yes.
Okay. And I can't see it off the bottom. Oh yeah. Okay, there it is. It is on. It is visible. And I have just tangled my camera around. So this is top level.
Mm-hmm.
Top
level production.
So.
Yeah, I wonder if anybody's in the chat and wants to come on and video chat with us. What do you think 2021? What are your predictions in the photo industry? What are you going to be working on in the next year? And what do you want to see other makers, either small businesses or just random people, make in 2021? Let's see. We've got, who do we have?
Okay, Eric. And the link is meet.google.com.
Yeah, it's down in the bottom of the screen.
I just came into.
Yeah.
I just came into. Okay, I'm out.
Yeah. Oh, I'm reading the link there. We have Eric Matthew with us.
I think at this point, one more of these shows, Eric, and you are no longer the co-host on the unmentionable podcast. You are now our co-host.
Right. I'm socially starved at home, working from home, and this is like 8:30. I can actually come here and not feel bad because I'm not at my day job yet.
Yeah, Eric, I got to say, like, one of the nicer things has been that you've come to hang out with me all the time while I am crimping. Hey, and we got Skip Williams. Here, I'm gonna smallerize myself a little bit here so we can see Skip. Hold on.
I also making my life's mission to make Nick smirk. It's really like.
Hey, Skip, can you hear us?
Hey,
you are muted.
For our podcast listeners, Eric and Nick look like they could be cousins, not quite brothers, but look at that. They could be cousins. Yeah, absolutely.
I only have two cousins, so I can
hang on a sec, guys. Hey, Skip, you're muted through Google Meet, so you want to turn off the live stream wherever you're watching it, or pause it, or mute it. And then in the Google Meets window, at the bottom, there's a little microphone icon that should be red. If you click it, there you go.
Now you can talk.
At the bottom, there's a little microphone icon. That echo is why you got to shut off the stream wherever you're watching it to talk to us.
Let me turn off the YouTube stream.
Yeah. It's really disconcerting otherwise.
Yeah. Underwater podcast.
Well, that's a good idea. Yourself twice. It is a good idea.
I would prefer to hear myself.
You guys are all fuzzy.
Okay. Yeah. Oh,
That's
it's going to
nice.
be something on that.
That's just because we haven't shaved.
We'll be
Well,
clear on the internet. I have the master connection to YouTube, but to you we might be fuzzy right now. But you
Yeah.
could go back and watch yourself clear on Facebook.
Oh, just what I need.
Yeah.
So Skip, what are you up to?
Oh, nothing. I'm not working this week, so everything's shut down in my business for like until like a couple days before Christmas and until after the New Year. It's pharmaceuticals. So all the pharmaceutical business, unless it's manufacturing or research, just closes down.
Damn,
Yeah.
nice.
Yeah.
So does that mean you have a week of camera building ahead of you?
I have a week of whatever it is around here. I spent a little bit of time the other day, Graham, putting the new knobs on the Kraken that you sent me. Thanks very much.
Yeah. All right. Cool. Just to let you guys know, the Kraken has, and for anybody who has built one, it does have a structural weakness in the knobs. So if you are a Kraken builder, print the knobs 100%. And usually that takes care of it. My next project has a knob system that is metal.
Did you use my screwdriver tip idea?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Number 2 flathead screwdriver bits. And there are 2 parts. There's the underside part and the top part. And they glue together, but they both have that hex shape. So there's nowhere to stress. Ethan.
Cool.
Yeah, the knobs were definitely the weak point on that. So I haven't taken it back out. I made the mistake the first time of putting it in and didn't realize I put the back on backwards, and I couldn't see the numbers. And I was like, I ran the whole roll through with I kept rolling, no numbers. And I was like, so I kind of. And then I took the stupid, I was going to roll the roll back onto the original spool. And I found out that that's not so easy because it's only taped to one end. So I said, F it. And I just unrolled the whole thing and ruined the roll of Portra 160.
Oh, no.
So now I have a test roll that has film in it that I can use in any camera forever.
I keep a few of those in the drawer that I ruin on a,
absolutely
regular basis.
I'm glad at least it was cheap film, right?
Couldn't be any more expensive. I should.
Yeah, it could have been Cinestill.
All right. Let me ask you a question, Skip. I want to know, what do you think your personal projects are going to be in 2021, or what do you think kind of the small cottage homemade camera industry, either small businesses or just other people making stuff on the internet, are going to kind of come out with, or what would you like to see? What are your predictions or wishes for 2021 in the homemade camera world?
The press pan is actually pretty neat, but that's a things like that are so Frankenstein oriented. You can't use something like that. I mean, you can use it, but you can't really make it. That's things like that are not.
Well, of course you can make it. You just have to, be set up for that kind of work.
Yeah, I've got now. I have. Let me see. 1, 2, 3, 4. I have 5 Graflex back or Horseman backs that I've got to do the light seals on. And
we started off with a discussion of light seals or light traps. Okay, never mind. Go on.
Yeah, and there's no good way to figure out. I have the material. It's not that hard to do, but it's hard to figure out which places need light seals and which places don't need light seals.
The answer is all of them.
That's kind of what I thought.
Everything.
That's kind of what I thought. So I'm just going to put them on all of them. And I actually found, I bought an RH12 back. You know what an RH12 is?
No.
The square format pack, and with a lever wind, not the bad knob wind, when the lever wind one.
Cool. So are these 2x3 you're talking about?
Square.
No, but they're the 2x3 graph lock or the 4x5 graph lock.
The 2x3, the roll film back, not the 4x5, and the RH12s are not too easy to find. I guess they didn't make many of them, and the first one I bought is great, but it came without the dark slide. So now I've got to take. I bought a bunch of 4x5 slides. I'm gonna cut a 4x5 slide down.
Oh, no, you go to Ace Hardware and grab. They have copper sheets, not copper, brass sheet. Oh, you can get aluminum as well. Seriously, aluminum's easy. It's not going to be as good as the stainless, but it's going to be
Well, the originals were plastic.
Mm-hmm.
That's okay. You just need the right thickness or a light seal that works with it. And actually, you could buy stainless as well.
The only challenge with buying metal though is once you cut it, it gets really sharp at the edges, so you've got to be very careful with.
Right.
So there's something called sandpaper that works really well.
Yeah.
Extra work. I'll send that to Ethan.
Yeah. I'll be right back.
So I also have roll film holders that fit 4x5 graph lock. Horseman makes a really good one. The Wista. There are a number of bigger ones for the 4x5 cameras.
So I bought a bunch of these nice vintage. I don't know if they're vintage, but they're old 4x5 holders that are plastic. They're really nice, thick plastic, and I'm just going to cut them. I'm just going to cut a new dark slide out and hacksaw off the end. It'll have the handle and everything right. It'll stay right on it.
Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
That way I don't have to jigger any of that kind of stuff. I'll just kind of make it work. Because it's all riveted. You can't take it apart.
It just feels bad because they're not really actively made anymore, So it's sort of like, on one hand, yeah, absolutely, but on the other hand, it's like, shit, no one's really making those. So
I got 4 of them for like $10 from some guy.
Well, actually, though, the J Lane Chroma plate holders work fine with film, so there is somebody making them.
It's true.
Yeah, there you go. So that's the thing that really struck me about this year is that instead of a boutique companies just making this or that or the other thing, you're starting to see pretty complete setups that are available.
Yeah.
So getting those to work, I bought a couple 220 backs that I'm going to use for sprocket photography. So put 35 millimeter in, because it's the right thickness and nobody wants the 220 backs.
Yeah.
So that should work pretty well. So that'll give me a bunch of stuff to work. What do I have now? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 backs in this stupid thing.
In the last month, I've probably made 5 custom finders for people's homemade cameras or whatever they're using to shoot panoramic 35 on 220. I think that's becoming a trend, at least the listeners of this podcast.
Yeah, cool. and to your point, having a finders is a real problem when you have glasses on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Everybody's got glasses, and almost all the finders, especially the finders, they just don't work very well.
The ones that I have made, come with a warning, like as you get infinitely wide, Oh yeah, you got it. Yeah, okay, you got one of them.
I do.
Yeah, I mean they're all right, but as you get really wide, you kind of have to look over here and look over there, and then figure it out. But
and then you're not
glass is really nice.
And then you're not really sure, when you're doing this and that, it's is it just me fudging with this to make it?
You can be pretty sure. It's
what
just
I want.
slow.
I know.
So one way to do it is with a press camera style sports finder. So the fold up sports finder. Now those have a little tiny ring you have to shove your eye up to make it work right. But I'm sure it would be really easy to change that eyepiece to allow a little more relief.
I mean the press
to work
finder,
with your glasses.
The press finder is the same system as what I'm using, right? Except it has a tunnel between the front and the back. The issue is as it gets really, really short, and this was the first thing we argued about, and you were right. Remember, this is when I had my Asperger's moment and needed to email you. But you just can't. Your eye can only see so much,
right?
Clearly, and so I don't know. I think I've sold a bunch of finders that are 50 and 65 millimeters for 35 on 6x7. So like the width is enormous, right? So you can easily frame this way, but you can't see as wide as the camera without like lining the back and the front up this way.
I think it's 6x9.
Yeah, that's a pretty wide one too.
That's 6x9. I think you made me a 6x6 and a 6x9 for mine.
That was a while ago.
So no, you do need optics to see the whole image all at once.
Mhm.
And one of the
Why?
because your field of view of your eye is limited to the 43 millimeter equivalent.
Well, as long as
That's
you're
simple.
willing,
But if you
as long as you're
use a
willing to look
lens
back
like
and forth.
this, look, if you use a lens like this one. So this is what Dora Goodman and a lot of other people do. They get one of these cheap thrift store conversion lenses, and this is you could look through this thing and you can focus pretty well. It gives a giant field of view. It's just a little wide angle lens, and you can make a mask for this. And ideally, you use a clear acetate or plastic mask with lines drawn on it, so you can see outside the frame. Anyway, various different magnifications of these are available, and they make a really effective way to see the whole field of view at once for wide angle. And you've seen this with cameras too. I mean, that the way that a rangefinder camera works with wider angle lenses is that it's using optics to change your field of view so that your eye can see the whole wider field of view without having to move around so you can see it all at once. And if you're framing quickly, if you're trying to catch that perfect moment.
I mean, to Ethan's credit, I can't see how it's any easier than sticking this thing up. I can look at it and I just it works perfectly.
But it doesn't. What lens are you using? What lens are you using? What's the lens?
It's got a 65 on it.
Yeah, well, that's a wider angle lens. So your eye, you can move your eye around and it changes the framing, correct?
Yeah, but it's angled, so I need to,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Right, you're not perceiving that whole field of view at an instant. You just aren't, unless there's a lens in there.
If I could put my favorite finder of all, where to go? The two that I like. You ever seen one of these?
That has a lens in it.
It is, but there's no. I mean, it's different. Those contour finders.
Mm-hmm.
The ones where you don't have.
Them. Yeah.
Skip, describe what it is for the podcast listener.
This is absolutely. I think I have 3 of them. This is probably one of the best finders ever made and especially with glasses. You know what I mean? It's perfect. So when there are optics in it, but it is an eyes wide open finder. So you put it up and you hold both eyes up, and what's inside is an opaque black mask with the frame lines cut out of it, like painted in white. The frame lines are translucent and painted in white. So when you put it up to your eye and you open both eyes, it superimposes a black field with a white square that is the 50 millimeter frame on a 35 millimeter camera. And it seems like it's the weirdest thing to use, but if you use one, I'm telling you.
So you're looking at the scene with the eye that is not looking through the viewfinder, and then the viewfinder just says, "Hey, here's your frame."
Yeah, if you've ever used a like a 0.72 or a 1-to-1 Bessa, where you can have both, or M3 where you can keep both eyes open. It's very similar to that, where you use both eyes, but it works fabulously. It's a shame they never made it any other focal lengths.
It's like putting frame lines on the real world.
That's right. It's kind of like VR.
Right.
I use this Olympus binder too. This which is not quite as good. I wish I had one of those action finders like that.
So this is a Mamiya Press Sports Finder, and it has this outer frame that's up now is the normal field of view. So it's equivalent. It's for a 100mm lens, and
Okay,
on the Mamiya Press camera, that's very similar to what your eye's field of view is.
Yep.
And for the podcast listeners, what Nick is holding up is essentially, we're all old enough. It's a TV antenna. It's the UHF TV antenna.
All right. It's a rectangular frame that frames the image, and a tiny little peephole that you put your eye up to, which forces you to center on the frame, and therefore you're seeing the field of view.
a wire.
Now,
so
there's
the
a reason
objective.
that these are never
The objective
made.
is just a wire. Okay.
These are never made for wide-angle lenses because you have to squirm around and try and peer up at the corners with your lens. There's another neat detail on this. I don't know if I can show it. This one has a very simple adjustment so that the point of view of the peep hole can be raised and lowered, and there's a convenient scale that lets you adjust for parallax. So by raising the peak point higher or lower, you can make the field of view correct for different focus distances.
I want to point out
it's a really elegant one.
Skip has room for a milling machine back where he was just standing.
Everybody has room for a milling machine. It just depends on what you can move out of your house.
Or
like my girlfriend.
At the end of the process of buying the milling machine and installing it in your house.
For the Kraken, I also put this is the Kraken, and you can see it's got I put blue painter's tape to tell me what the framing looks like.
Oh yeah.
So I can get on the back, and if it's especially sitting on a tripod, I can really see exactly where the edges of the frame are going to be. And I took out the insert that you put in, Graham.
Right.
And if you take out the insert with this is a 90 on here, and I can hold it up, and it's almost perfect. Just without the insert, I can hold my eye up, and it is really close at longer distance.
And for those of you who don't know, the Kraken has a finder that's two parts. One of them is a circle where you place your eye, and that can move in and out in relation to a rectangle that's the 2:1 6x12 frame. So if you have a really long lens on it, you make that a really long shape, and if you have a really short lens, you push it in, and it's a short shape or it's a short distance, and that allows you to have essentially the frame lines.
Yeah, I took it outside, stuck it on a tripod, put the ground glass on it, and I could see exactly. I could look in the real world and see where the picture was ending on the film gate, and then I could see. So I could put my little thingies on, and I could make sure it was. So it works great.
Cool.
Yeah, it works fine for framing. The difference, the reason for lenses is that if you want that instantaneous perception of the whole frame, and the way that the Voigtlander Bessa for wide-angle lenses, for instance, has a very wide-angle viewfinder for that reason, so that you can get that instantaneous view of the whole image. But it also means you shrink the size of what you're seeing, so you have a harder time seeing detail. And there's a lot to be said for the sports finder approach. And what I do for that is I try and train myself. So I'm going to use, a sports finder like this is just going to give me the normal frame, but I can tell myself, well, the actual image is going to be this much wider, and it's pretty easy to kind of figure that out. Learn to adjust to that. That's also what I do for different formats. For 6x6, I just tell myself these sides are cut off.
The Retina, actually, they made a sports finder for this. I haven't bought one, but they had one for this that I think had probably 3 frame lines. Probably had 35, 50, 80. My guess, maybe 135 as well. And I probably should find one of those.
I've never seen a sports finder go as wide as 35mm, but I've never seen them go wider than normal, which is around 40.
What else do I have? I also have a turret, an old Voigtlander turret that has two finders. It has a 35 and an 80. You pick it up and a 50, and you pick it up and turn it around and flip it up. Eric's nodding his head.
Yeah.
Those are good, but they're wacky.
I've seen it with the triple.
Well, I've the
like the 135, an 85, and a 50.
mine's 5. I have one with 5.
Yeah,
That's
those are
KMZ. And
Yeah, the
they're
Russian turrets.
lensed. They're literally 5 different lenses that you rotate through, and that goes from 28 millimeter.
How does that
to
work?
35.
Does that work well, Nick?
It works
that
really
great.
well.
Is
Yeah.
it?
I really like that finder. It's excellent. The only thing that there are 2 ways to do this. The KMZ uses different lenses so that you get that full frame, at one instant. But the other way that this is done is the old lights finders for Leicas had an actual rectangular aperture that would get bigger and smaller. So that one is at a fixed wide angle magnification, but you're cropping with and it's a continuous zoom crop, which is really handy. So, it's got markings on it for the standard lenses, but if you have an odd format that's in between, or an odd field of view that's in between, like 40 millimeter, you can simply turn the dial to that spot, and it gives you an accurate framing. And those ones also had parallax correction, which worked by simply angling the viewfinder downward as you focus closer. Really a simple idea.
For the KMZ turret, can you get enough eye relief to use it with your glasses?
Not really.
I don't use them with glasses. So luckily I'm farsighted. So viewfinders work fine for me without glasses. Then I have to whip out my glasses to read the tiny little numbers on the lens.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the problem that I have. Whenever I want to be able to use it with my glasses on. I don't want to have to take them on, take them off, take them on, take them off.
One of the reasons I love Mamiya Press system is they have big numbers and letters on their lenses. One of the fun, I use a very wide angle modern viewfinder that's a 21 millimeter. It has both 21 and 28 millimeter frame lines, and it was made by Cosina for Ricoh. And they also had some sold under the Voigtlander. So that, for me, 21 and 28 covers everything. 24 is somewhere in between the two. So that one viewfinder works for all my wide angle, but below, wider than 35 millimeter.
Yeah, Graham, you were talking about buying one of the little 28s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I lost one of those in my shop somewhere.
One thing that's great about the 21 millimeter one, though, is that it has a really big field of view, and I can read the top of a lens through it. So when I'm using that on a lot of cameras, I can actually see the markings through the viewfinder. I don't even have to take my eye off, and that's super fun.
Guys, we are coming up on a couple hours of this, and so I am going to end this podcast. However, I'm going to keep the chat open, and I will be here on the Cameradactyl channel, crimping and stripping. You're welcome to keep hanging out, but I'm going to let Graham take us out.
Before you end it, just one side note before you end it. On the 2nd, for those of you who keep track of the large format photography podcast, we're showing rides, so take photos, which can't be seen anywhere. And we're streaming it in the large format photography podcast group on Facebook. It's really not a distribution.
I was trying to find it, Eric, before, and I noticed it was shown like for a week at a indie film festival, and that was it.
Yep, that's it. So,
and actually, is that 11 a.m. Pacific time? Or
correct.
Yeah,
which is like 7 o'clock over the pond. So we get international that way.
So, Eric, how do we find it? If you want to be one of those people who watches the show, and this is January 2nd, correct?
Yep.
Okay.
1/2/21. It's really easy to remember. This is how I have to do things. Otherwise, I'm just like, it's a miracle I remember my name half the time. You can just go into Facebook. Well, there's a few places. You can go onto Facebook and just search for the large format photography podcast, and then just ask to join the group. It's a lovely group of people. Most of the folks who listen to your podcast are probably already in there. So
definitely, but not vice versa.
Hey now.
Yeah, you're probably right, Ethan.
Yeah. And then there's Hamish is going to publish a little piece on the 35 millimeter site. I think today, that has a link to the Facebook group and more details as well, with some photos from the project and the trailer. And yeah, that's about that. So.
Okay, and for those of you who have been living under a rock, what this is this is Eric riding his bike from San Francisco to.
I was just waiting to see if you could. Okay, Tucson.
Tucson, yeah, and having photographic adventures along the way.
It looks great. Dealing
with fun stuff and not so fun stuff as it happens along the way. Yeah. I think you lose your head there. Does it show the lost lens?
Yes, it does.
Wait, have you seen this, Graham?
No, I've listened to a lot of description of it. I've seen the trailer, and I'm excited to see it. I am not currently a member of Facebook, so I will need to gin up an account. So
no, he banned Facebook.
Yeah,
no,
which is
Facebook,
not a bad idea.
You can't fire me. I quit.
Yeah. No, Facebook questioned my identity and required me to submit a copy of my driver's license. And I thought, no. So so that account actually still exists. You can message it. Nobody's going to respond because I can't get into it. So I'll just have to gin up an account really quickly.
Yeah, I'm not a giant Facebook fan, except for very specialized uses.
And that was
for all you watching live on Facebook, thanks for watching.
Exactly.
Okay, so there's a recent. Wait, hold on. Yeah. I want to recommend a recent article in the Atlantic that basically presents a lucid argument that Facebook is in fact a doomsday machine.
Yeah, I posted that too.
Yeah. Okay, so on this note, as we bite the hand that streams us, I want to thank Robbie Cribbs. Robbie is the person who composed and allows us to use our music, even though we're not yet at that stage in OBS where we have music, but we'll have that soon. And you guys have any shout outs? Eric, you have anybody you want to shout out to real quick?
I guess I'm going to try not to slur the name. I'm going to say Hamish. Hamish?
Yeah, Hamish.
What? Hamish. Okay. Hamish, 35 mil, for being kind enough to post the little article that I did. And also for all the work. That guy pumps out a lot of analog photography work. He's been a huge... I won't say a player might not be the right word, but just proponent for the years now for analog photography across several mediums, and just bootstrapped himself into it. And I really appreciate how hard that guy's worked for a long time. So I guess I'm going to shout out to him, and then my co-host of Large Format podcast, Andrew and Simon, for just being great and putting up with my shit.
Absolutely. Skip, hey,
official host now, Eric.
Of LFPP, yeah.
He's official co-host of the Homemade Camera podcast.
I'm the jester. I pop in every once in a while.
The next thing you'll be over on the Classic Lenses podcast with Perry.
There we go. Hey, there's an opening on Negative Positives.
Podcast. Okay. Wrap it up.
Skip, do you have anybody to shout out to?
No, you guys are way over my head here. I'm just a rank amateur.
Okay, Nick, you have anybody to shout out to?
Not today.
Okay, Ethan.
Thanks, Robbie.
Yeah, okay. I'm going to say Heather once again. Heather Oklaus once again. Thank you for making my favorite camera of the year.
All right, bye-bye.